Hello, everybody, and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And the NFL season has come to an end. And with that, we get to pick the awards for this 2021-2022 season. MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, and Coach of the Year. We will be going through all of these awards and who we collectively think is going to win them. We originally planned that we were going to debate, go back and forth as to who we thought deserved the award, but turns out like we really don't disagree on much.
Great minds think alike.
I definitely agree. So without further ado, Tim, you ready to run it?
Let's run it.
All right. So the first award we're going to go through is the Offensive Player of the Year. And for all of these, we will be going through the top three players who we feel are most deserving. And third on our list is Deebo Samuel, wide receiver from San Francisco. In his age 25 season, he did it all for the 49ers, catching the ball, running the ball. And some stats that really, stand out to me is that he had 8 rushing touchdowns, 14 total touchdowns. He had as many rushing touchdowns as Nick Chubb, Leonard Fournette, and James Robinson. And he was third in total scrimmage yards behind Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp. So he didn't catch that many passes. He was tied for 24th in the league in receptions, but he was 5th in receiving yards with 719 yards after the catch, which is good for second. So he had a really, really good all-around season for the 49ers, and he is third on our list. Tim, who you got at the silver medal?
So silver medal for us, we've got Jonathan Taylor, who many people actually believe could be a final or could be the winner of this award, but for us, we got somebody else edging him out. This his second year in the league, age 22, he led the league in both rush attempts and rushing yards, as well as he led the league. Little bit of an interesting stat in 20-plus yard runs. He had 14 of them, so he was a real big breakout runner. Also led the league in rushing touchdowns and scrimmage yards. So there's a lot of stats in the running back category that he led, but some of that has to do with the fact that he was on a team that was very run first in the Indianapolis Colts.
Pure volume led to a lot of this. And that's not a bad thing. We're not saying that's a bad thing because most all other running backs were injured at some point in the season. But Jonathan Taylor was able to make the most with those carries. And we think he had a really good season and quite frankly, carried the Colts on his back. But that's not who we have taken the gold for Offensive Player of the Year. Our Offensive Player of the Year winner is Cooper Kupp, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Rams. For as many categories as Jonathan Taylor placed first in, Cooper Kupp was quite literally first in every single statistic for receivers. First in receptions, first in targets, first in receiving yards, first in touchdowns, first in yards after the catch, first in big receptions, which is receptions of 20 yards or more. And he was only second in scrimmage yards, which is really impressive for wide receivers.
For a wide receiver, especially one that doesn't get the ball handed to him at all, like Deebo Samuel.
Exactly. And he was very, very close to breaking some NFL records. He was 4 away from Michael Thomas's single season receptions record. And he was 17 yards away from Calvin Johnson's single season receiving yards record. Cooper Kupp captures the receiving triple crown and in our eyes captures the Offensive Player of the Year because we think that he was the best offensive player on the field in the season of 2021-2022. So now we're going to move on to the Defensive Player of the Year. And although we think that there is a clear answer here, we're just going to run through some guys who we think got third and second. At third, I have Robert Quinn for the Chicago Bears. And at 31 years old, he had a really impressive season. He finished second in the league in sacks with 18 and a half. That is second most in his career. It's not even a career high, which is crazy, but he definitely turned back the clock. He had 17 tackles for loss, which is tied for 5th, and 4 forced fumbles, which is tied for 7th. Robert Quinn had a breakout, a comeback year, and that placed him third in Defensive Player of the Year. Tim, who we got at silver?
Coming in at number 2, we have a bit of a repeat offender when it comes to the Defensive Player of the Year finalist, Aaron Donald of the Los Angeles Rams. At age 30, he tied for 7th in the league with 12 and a half sacks, but had 19 tackles for loss, which put him up at 4th, and 4 forced fumbles, just like Robert Quinn, tying him at 7th. Once again, another really dominant defensive player, year in and year out. He catches almost everybody's double teams. He has one of the highest double team rates in the league, and he's overall just a really dominant player that every team has to take account for whenever you're facing the Los Angeles Rams. So he was enough. He had enough to bring him up to the top 3 and into number 2 on our list, but just not quite enough to edge it out from our number 1 here.
Well, Tim, why don't you break it down? Who gets the Defensive Player of the Year award?
This one, definitely a pretty clear answer for most people. This was TJ Watt from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just an extremely dominant player this year. Age 27, had 22 and a half sacks, which was good for first in the league, and tied a single season NFL record, granted, of course, with the extra game. 21 tackles for loss, which was tied for first, and 5 forced fumbles. So he was all over the field for the Steelers in every facet of the game, causing fumbles, getting pressure on the QB, getting a lot of sacks for not necessarily being a power rusher. He was more using his athleticism to get around guys, but just an absolute menace. And he's only 27, so it's hard to tell just how many years of this he can put up, but he had a really impressive year for Pittsburgh this year.
Yeah, you can't ignore tying Michael Strahan's single season sack record, and TJ Watt is our Defensive Player of the Year. Now we'll move on to Offensive Rookie of the Year. And taking the bronze, we have another Pittsburgh Steeler, Najee Harris, their running back. He had 307 attempts, which is good for second. He was the only other running back besides Jonathan Taylor that was able to stay healthy the whole season. So big shout out to him. But he was about as dual threat as they came, even though he only had 1,200 rushing yards, which is still a lot, good for the Pittsburgh Steelers rookie rushing record. He had 467 yards through the air and 74 receptions, which is the most out of all of the running backs. So as much as Pittsburgh liked to throw the ball, Najee Harris made a good impact in the pass game as well. He was 4th in scrimmage yards, and that clearly shows, almost having 1,700. But Tim, who do we have at second for the Rookie of the Year?
Number 2 was a little bit of a quiet performer for a decent amount of the year, but really came on late and had some really strong performances. Jalen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins. In his age 23 season, same age as Najee Harris and a lot of the rookies. He had 104 receptions, which was good for 8th in the league, but set a single season record for rookies, which once again, he kind of just quietly zoomed up towards that record. But it was a very impressive year out of him on 140 targets, which put him at 11th, or tied for 11th in the league. He had 1,015 receiving yards, which of course, to break 1,000 in your rookie season is very impressive. But once again, he was a number 1 target for the Dolphins. And he had 439 yards after the catch, which was good for 19th in the league. The real speedster, you get him the ball, he can find open space and just take off with it. And he had 8 receptions of 20 plus yards, which was tied for 61st. So given the situation with him being on the Dolphins with Tua throwing the ball to him, kind of did hinder a little bit of some of the deep ball situations. Tua's never really been known for one to really sling it.
Tua to Jalen Waddle was a lethal combination.
Oh, yeah.
And breaking that single season record for receptions for rookies speaks for itself. I think that merits silver. But now We're going to go on to the winner of the Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's pretty clear. LSU product, Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver, Ja'Marr Chase. In his rookie season, he had 81 receptions on 128 targets, 1,455 receiving yards, which is good for 4th in the NFL in the entire league, and 13 receiving touchdowns, which was good for 3rd. He made a huge impact in the Bengals pass game with 22 receptions of 20 yards or more, which was tied for 4th in the league, and really revitalized that Bengals offense and gave them a deep threat that they could rely on. And the kid is only 21. It's very clear that Ja'Marr Chase is the Rookie of the Year. Although I do think that Jalen Waddle deserves the silver medal because he was quite underrated this season. But Ja'Marr Chase is our Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, I know some of you are going to say, wait a minute, where's Mac Jones? Mac Jones is 4th on our list. But when we look at Mac Jones, yes, he was good. He led the Patriots to the playoffs, but he was incredibly mediocre with his stat lines. He was around 14th, 15th in every major stat category, except for completion percentage, where he was 8th, but just incredibly, incredibly average. And you can't take away the things that Najee Harris and Jalen Waddle did for their teams. So I think those two you can put above Mac Jones. And also shout out Creed Humphrey for being the best center in the league his rookie season. All right. So now
one thing that I would like to add for Mac Jones specifically, I think it's important to realize he was very solid for rookie QBs. Look, usually rookie QBs
Oh no, absolutely.
do not
Absolutely.
have great, usually they do not have great seasons coming in. But compared to some of the exceptional seasons that we had from some of the other rookies, it didn't really qualify him for top 3 for at least us.
And we can have a discussion about the rookie quarterbacks in their first season. And if you want, we can most definitely make that an episode. So if you want that episode, comment down below. But Mac Jones, fine season, just not really enough to crack the top 3. It was more what the other guys did. So now we're going on to the defensive rookie of the year. We're not going to do a top 3 here. We're going to do a number 1, and that is Micah Parsons, linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys. Micah Parsons
really ran away with that one.
Yeah. 13 sacks, which was good for 6th, and 20 tackles for loss, which was good for 3rd in the entire NFL as a linebacker. He was a major cog in that Dallas Cowboys defense, and he's up there for defensive player of the year. He's not in our top 3. He's in our top 5, but he was definitely the clear runaway winner for defensive rookie of the year. Tim, you got anything?
Not much other than the fact that he was, like you said, he was such a crucial part of that Dallas defense. He brought a lot of attention upon himself, which once again helped open up things for some of the other guys. And it'll be real interesting to see what he has from years on out, because he looked really dominant in year 1. So I think he's got a lot of great years ahead of him.
Yeah. So now we will move on to the comeback player of the year. And there are some very worthy candidates for this award. In 3rd place, we have Nick Bosa, the edge rusher for the San Francisco 49ers. After tearing his ACL, MCL, and left meniscus, he came back to have a top 5 season in sacks with 15.5 and forcing 4 fumbles, which was tied for 7th most in the league. Nick Bosa went right back to being that force on the San Francisco defense that he was previously. Tim, who we got at 2nd?
Number 2 is a player that a lot of people thought had a very, very good chance of being number 1, but didn't quite live up to some of the hype down the stretch, and that would be Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys. Granted, he had a great season coming off of that compound ankle fracture, real nasty injury. Really hated to see it when it happened. But he had 410 completions on 596 attempts, good for 5th and 9th respectively in the league. He was top 10 in basically every quarterback category. One of the most impressive being 104.2 passer rating, which was good for 3rd in the league. Had a very solid season, brought Dallas back to the playoffs.
And he had a really, really good season, but it wasn't good enough for our comeback player of the year. And that is Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow, because he tore his ACL and MCL in his left knee against the Washington football team last year. And oh boy, he came back with a vengeance. He led the Bengals to an AFC North title, and he has been slinging that football to his top 3 receivers and Joe Mixon and lighting the league on fire. He led the league in completion percentage with 70.4, which is a crazy amount to complete 70% of your passes. And he was very efficient when throwing the ball, throwing for a lot of yards. He was 6th in passing yards, and he was near the middle of the pack in the league in terms of volume and throwing the ball. So that was also really impressive. 34 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. You can lower the turnovers a little bit, but he was 2nd in the league in passer rating with 108.3. So Joe Burrow had a fantastic season. There's no doubt in my mind, and I don't think in yours, Tim, that he's the comeback player of the year.
For sure. I mean, one of the things with some of that efficiency and the amount of yards he had on as little attempts is he had that big play receiver in Jamar Chase that really helped him have some massive gains there in the season. So once again, he had a fantastic year coming off of that ACL, MCL. It was really great to see him getting going with Jamar Chase, his old college buddy. So it'll be real interesting to see what they can pull off in the playoffs, but talk about a guy with a lot of potential to be a franchise quarterback from here on out.
And now we get to go to the big kahuna. We saved the best for last, the most valuable player. We're just going to give quick honorable mentions to the guys that we had 4th and 5th on our list. At 5th place, we had Jonathan Taylor, running back for the Indianapolis Colts. And 4th place, Cooper Kupp, the wide receiver for the Los Angeles Rams. We talked about them, number 1 and 2 in offensive player of the year. So there's really not much more that we need to go into about them. They both had fantastic seasons, the best players at their respective positions for this year, statistically speaking. And now we're going to move on to the bronze medal for MVP. And hey, we just mentioned this guy, Joe Burrow, quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. And because of what he did for that team, we went through pretty much all of it before. Fantastic stats, especially coming off that torn ACL and MCL, leading the Bengals to the playoffs, AFC North Division title. And without him, the Bengals are nowhere near where they are right now. They're not getting to that playoff spot or division title with Brandon Allen at quarterback. So Joe Burrow is third on our list. Tim, you want to go through the silver medal?
Yes, silver medal here. It's a little bit interesting because, of course, everybody has their opinions on what stats matter and what don't. But we have, coming in at second, your league leader in passing yards and completions, the ever-living wonder, Tom Brady. At age 44, he, as I said, he led the league in completions at 485, which is a single-season record, and led the league in attempts as well with 719, which was 8 away from the single-season record. Led the league in passing yards, passing touchdowns, and was second in QBR. Once again, had a very, very solid season. Of course, for a quarterback at age 44, absolutely incredible. He just never seems to go away. But one of the things that we certainly considered and talked about with this season for Tom Brady is him leading the league in completions, attempts, and passing yards is partially, and a big part actually, to do with the fact that he is in a team at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that is heavily pass first. Same argument why Jonathan Taylor didn't necessarily narrate a higher ranking in Offensive Player of the Year for us, because they're in a run first team. So like you said, volume has a big part to do with some of these things, but an incredible season from Tom Brady here.
Well, Tim, you mentioned the sheer volume that he had. I mean, 5,316 passing yards and 40 touchdowns, both leading the league. And he set a single season record for completions. I mean, granted, if you throw the ball a lot, the volume and the counting stats, they will absolutely be there. Yeah. But I think that should only heighten Tom Brady, because at age 44, yes, he threw the ball a lot. Yeah. So again, those counting stats don't seem as impressive, but the fact that he was able to generate a bunch of offense at that age and perform at this level merits his durability
is incredible.
Exactly. Merits him second. And I know Bruce Arians is like, it's a travesty if he doesn't win MVP. You know, I can see the case.
Yeah, but there's obviously a case.
But it's not enough for our most valuable player for this season. And I'm going to hold it up. Number 12 of the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, is this season's most valuable player. And here's why. He didn't throw the ball as much as Tom Brady, so he was only 10th in passing yards, 11th in completions, and 12th in attempts. But boy, was he efficient. Did he play mistake-free football for the entire season, with the exception of that week 1 blunder.
If you take out that week 1, like, talk about an almost unblemished stat line. Because of course that first week was the majority of his mistakes.
If you don't take into account the counting stats, right? And you look at rate. He's third in completion percentage at 68.9. He's first in QBR at 68.8, first in passer rating at 111.9. And here's how crazy he is. He was fourth in touchdowns and threw the fewest interceptions, like he does every year. 37 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions. And if you take away that New Orleans game, that turns to 37-2. Mistake-free football from darn near the jump. And the Packers are 13-4, the first seed. They've got a bye. And if Aaron Rodgers isn't your most valuable player for the second consecutive year, I got nothing to say.
I mean, here's the thing, like, and this is coming from a Bears fan. I don't liking Aaron Rodgers, but I had to appreciate and like the season that he had this year. He came out the gate, obviously everything in the offseason, you have no idea what's going to happen. He has struggles in week one, but just completely flips the switch. Talk about efficiency, throwing the ball wherever he needed to, in an incredible efficient way. You obviously know Aaron Rodgers, he's never going to have a lot of interceptions. He's a extremely high IQ quarterback, and he showed it this year at age 38. He's got a lot of years and a lot of experience in the league, and he kind of single-handedly willed this Packers team to a first seed and a 13-4 record. So it's hard even as a Bears fan to point the needle anywhere else other than right back to him for the second straight year.
See, Tim, I like to hear that because people think there's a lot of bias with me as a Packers fan. And granted, there
will always be bias with you in Green Bay and specifically, or in specifics, but in this situation, there are stats and analytics to back it up. And that is why I agree with you in this instance.
That's all we got for the end of season awards. We will have NFL predictions coming up all playoffs long up until the Super Bowl. We have college football content. That season just wrapped up, and we have an NHL video in there somewhere because hockey is fun and it deserves to be talked about. But until next time, like and subscribe for more Running the Table content, and we out.